Hello, everyone. Welcome to the KJ Lee Experience. My name is KJ Lee, and I'll be your host. The goal of the show is to uncover the valuable life lessons taught throughout sports. We'll be introducing you to some of the highest performing professionals in the world today, and we'll have them share their unique experiences about how they use sports to see the bigger picture, and we'll explain how you can use sports to win in life. I hope you enjoy. This woman was born in Los Angeles, played 2 sports in college, and she just finished her 3rd season playing in the National Women's Soccer League. I would like to introduce you guys to Elizabeth Eddy. Elizabeth, thank you for joining me today. So I never asked you this. What do you like to go by? Elizabeth, Lizzie?
I like Elizabeth best, and like Liz, Lizzie, anything else after that.
Okay.
I'd say I really like Elizabeth and I like anything else.
Okay, so I'll call you Elizabeth.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so this is the first time I'm interviewing a professional athlete, so I'm honored to have you here. You could be doing a million other things. There's something that I really admire about you professional athletes, and I'll give you a hint, okay? It's something that I believe keeps the fun in the game. I'll give you two guesses.
2 guesses. Why you admire professional athletes and it keeps the fun in the game. I mean, I think something about playing at the highest level, to get there you have to have something special and like be in some degree creative or extremely gifted, and maybe that's it.
No.
Creativity? That's true. Maybe the perseverance to like become a professional athlete.
Mm-hmm. Those are great things that you're mentioning. But what I'm talking about is the handshakes that you guys do.
Oh,
do you have cool handshakes with your teammates?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Do you mind? Can we create a
Can we
handshake?
do one?
Yes,
Yeah, let's
please.
do one.
You want to initiate or?
I mean, yeah, sure. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Okay. What do we have in mind?
1, 2.
Okay. Here we go.
1, 2.
Smooth. Okay. So I've known you for how long? 3 weeks now?
Yeah, about 3 weeks.
Okay, I've known you for 3 weeks, and we met on a Friday night in NYC. It wasn't at a bar, it wasn't at a club. We were at Connect Group.
Yes.
Hillsong Church Connect Group. And the topic of discussion for the night was our waiting period. So we know that people that have a vision, the time period in between reaching their vision and where they're at is the waiting period. And I believe that the discussion was, we had to share a story about our waiting period. And it was a group of about 25 people in one small apartment. You were new there, and you shared your story about your waiting period. You talked about how you weren't in the best position last year. You recently got traded. You're in a better position now. My first question to you is, why did you feel the need to share your story?
There's something I do when I get with new groups of people, and like and usually this happens pretty regularly, but I know one person, they invite me and it's a whole new group. And I think it's really important to like choose to be vulnerable and honest. And if you share your story or a part of it, then other people can connect with it. And that's how you can like quickly meet people and make friends. And I think that's a really important skill that I learned way back in probably like high school. And I'm transferred high schools, mid-high school, and I go to my parents, so Mom and Dad, how do you make friends? Like, this is kind of hard. And they were like, well, ask people about themselves. Like, it's all through story. Like, have those conversations. And then I think somebody shared first. No, I think I might have been the first one to share.
Yeah.
So then I shared my story, and then I was really excited to hear other people's stories. And as I heard them, I was like, wow, this is so cool. And after, I was able to connect with some other people, hear their story more, and like would go a little deeper on the stories that were really interesting to me.
Yeah, that's something that I'll never forget. You really inspired me that day. I remember I didn't share my story that day, and afterwards I felt terrible. I really regretted it. I went right to my notes app in my iPhone, and I was like, whenever somebody asks for a volunteer, I'm sharing from now on. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So earlier this summer, I read a book by Robert Greene. Do you know Robert Greene?
I can't remember it.
So he wrote the book 48 Laws of Power. Basically, that's like a best-selling book, and it says that everyone in the world today wants power, and what they do is they disguise it. They disguise that want by playing games. So he just talks about all the games that people play, but that's not the book I'm talking about. The book that I'm talking about is called Mastery by him, and what he says is, the whole idea of the book is, in order to find true fulfillment in your life, you need to choose a career path that aligns with your passion. And in order to reach the top level of this, the mastery level, you need to go through certain phases. So the first phase is the apprentice phase. That's like an internship. The second phase is the creative phase. That's when you first start putting your work out there. And the final phase is the mastery phase. That's when you reach the top level. So I'm going to read a quote from the book that stuck with me, okay? Okay, it says, many of those who succeed in life have had the experience in their youth of having mastered some skill, a sport or game, a musical instrument, foreign language, and so on. Buried in their minds is the sensation of overcoming their frustrations and entering a cycle of accelerated returns. In moments of doubt in the present, the memory of the past experience rises to the surface. Filled with trust, in the process they trudge on well past the point in which others slow down or quit. So I want you to look back to your youth. Was there something that you mastered, a sport or a game when you were young that still sticks with you today, and in times of doubt, you're able to look back and be like, oh, I was able to accomplish that, so this is nothing?
Oh, that's a really good question. I played a ton of sports growing up. I was playing like 5 sports a season at one point, and my parents were like, you're so annoying, we can barely figure out carpools. And I was like, but it's fun. And I would say that one thing that I did do in college is that I went to USC on a soccer scholarship, and that was awesome. And then I met somebody who went on a baseball and football. One was a scholarship, one was a walk-on, like was a bit younger than me. And after hearing their story, I was like, wait, that's so cool. Like, why not try to do more than one sport? And then the next year I went and asked my coach for soccer. I was like, hey, like, I know I'm here for soccer on the scholarship, but like, can I get a chance to play lacrosse? And he was like, yeah. First he was like, well, I don't know, it's captain for soccer or lacrosse player. You guys might not win very many games because it's the first year.
What year were you in?
I was in my junior year.
Junior year, okay.
And as I'm going through this process, I'm like, I understand all of these potential risks and struggles, but I would really like to do this. And they were like, well, no, but maybe it'll change. We'll talk about it later, like in a couple of weeks. It was during winter break. And then that happened. And then miraculously, they were like, oh, we made a deal with the coach. Like, you're going to get to play. And I was like, yes, I was so stoked. And then I played. And that semester, it was like 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. block was lacrosse or soccer practice. 10 to 2 was class. 2 to 6 was lacrosse practice. I lived in the sorority at the time. So like 6 to 8 maybe studied like social life from like 8 to 10 or 11, went to bed, got up again and like repeat. And that was like out of control, but I like loved every second of it. I'm just like the opportunity to like do something that was like really exciting to me, and then like surviving it and doing well in it, like kind of gave me the confidence of like, as I continue moving on, is like, anything you can do, why not just go for it? Like there's no limit, like just life's short, like live it to the fullest and like take every chance you can.
That's amazing. So you played lacrosse for your junior and senior?
Junior, senior year, and then I got drafted for soccer after my senior year, and then the lacrosse coach was like, hey, come back for your 5th year, do grad school, we want you back, and like defer your pro drafting kind of thing. So I didn't go pro that year. I like stayed back, did lacrosse, finished grad school, and then went to the pros.
Wow, that's awesome. I was actually watching a video on YouTube. I think it might have been after one of your lacrosse games or lacrosse practice, and you said this. You said, if we believe, we can do it. I don't know lacrosse, but I know sports, and I know that if you have a belief that any team can win, every single game has a life of its own. What exactly do you mean by that?
It's like kind of 2 things there. So one is that like, if you've had experience in your life and you've had some level of success, like you can usually say, what are the core things I learned from that experience? And then you can parlay them into any other experience. So like say in sport, you learn that like taking the initiative, being vulnerable, being honest, and like going for something has like driven to like, oh, I have more friendships, I'm given more opportunities. Then like it would like behoove you to be like, okay, next experience, same thing. Like put yourself out there, go for it. Put yourself out there, go for it. And like, that's just like a bigger principle. But specifically in sport, it's like, I know like a certain skill sets that like I was born with, like God gave me. And it's like, cool, those are really good in the sport. I've watched that sport a little bit. I don't fully understand it, but I know the skill sets I have can be very useful there. And like, then when the second part of the comment was like, every game has a life of its own, is like, even if you don't have like the perfect skill set, there's a big part of sport that comes down to belief and heart, that like, if you believe something and you do your very best for it and you kind of choose to not doubt in the moments that like are like crucial, you can start increasing your skill set and like, if you have confidence and like opportunities like tenfold. So it's like a pairing of like belief and then like just kind of going for it.
Gotcha. And were your teammates receptive of this message? Were they welcoming in having you join their team?
They were very welcoming, but there was a bit of once we started playing games, and at first I didn't get any seconds the first 2 games, and they're like, oh, well, you're super athletic, you're gonna face guard the other team's best player, and if you shut them down, it'll help us win games. So then I like had a role that was like really fun. I got to play that throughout my career there, but there was a bit of like, you don't even know the game, you barely can pass and throw, but you're starting, this is really, really frustrating. Yeah. But then I think over time it was like, well, that's something you're really gifted at, just athleticism, and you can man mark people, like it's helpful for the team. And so like, we're happy that our team's has the chance to do better, but like I think there was a bit of like, I spent 10 years of my life doing this and you've literally played for like a month.
So there was
a bit of like I would say like tension there.
They felt some type of way.
Yes, a little bit.
Gotcha. So you wanted to play 2 sports. I consider that very ambitious of you. What role would you say sports has in defining ambition for you?
I would say sports was like the venue I was able to like, it kind of was the venue, the platform that I was able to like set a goal and like have an aim to achieve it. And like the cool thing about sport is that every single day you have to give your full self. It can't just be like, oh, my physical body or my mental body. Like you have to emotionally, physically, and mentally be fully invested. Otherwise you won't grow and you won't get better. And if you're slightly distracted or you're not fully into, like, it doesn't work. So like sport is something that like fully exposes you, where like you go to business and like you can prepare, like you don't have to work out. Like in sport, you're giving your various physical effort, which makes sometimes your mental decisions go lower. And then emotionally you have to be able to like pick yourself up when you make a mistake. Do you like get really down and it creates more mistakes? Or do you say, you know what, I made a mistake, let it go, demand the ball again?
Yeah.
Well, I had another bad first touch, demand the ball again. Like choosing to like learn these little triggers to like keep you from like getting spiraled out, to like keep you slowly getting better over time.
Gotcha. So you think with your background in sports, you're a professional athlete now, do you think it would be an easy transition into the business world?
I think this, like I was saying earlier, like the skills I've learned in business, like taking chances, taking risks, like putting yourself out there, like almost like failing fast, like do something, learn from it, do something, learn from it. That will help me. I think regardless, it'll still be very difficult because I think as I've grown older and played in the league a little bit, I've come to realize that like, no matter if you're winning a lot or you're losing a lot, like it's always hard. It's never going to be easy, but like, okay, what can you do differently during the hard phase, which is what every day you're working a handful of hours to like do your best to get better. Like, what can you do a little differently there? So like, I think it'll be, I have a lot of good core, like, I don't know if they're just character traits or skill sets to like parlay into business, but I think it'll be hard. And I've already been doing business for a little bit and I've had some significant mistakes that like I wish that I wouldn't have had to learn, but I think at the end of the day I had to learn to get the scar tissue to like be like, okay, that's just how people operate in this sphere. What can we learn not to do that mistake again?
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like everyone that has played sports, especially at your level, I feel like they could, not easily, but they have what it takes to make that transition into business.
Yeah, I will say that. I will say 100% believe I will be very successful in business and I'll be able to achieve a lot of the things that I have like a vision to achieve. But I think a lot of it doesn't necessarily come down to me and my vision and what I decide to do. A lot of it's like, I'm like a really big Christian. I like believe in Jesus and he's like the most important thing to me. And like a lot of that comes into like, here are all my dreams, but like, God, what do you want of me? Like, I know you've gifted me. I know you've given me vision, but like some visions I know probably aren't for what's best for you and your plan. So like your plan's more important than mine. Like, here's my plan. I'm going to offer it up to you. And if you want to bless it, bless it. If you don't, you don't. Like where you give favors, where I'll walk. Like,
yes.
And that's kind of a lot of how I try to live my life is like, I'm a big dreamer. So I've got lots of dreams, but it's like, what does God want to happen? Like, let's keep staying in that line. Cause like, even if it's not the success worldly that I like or externally, like I know that at the end of the day, like at the end of the day, when I die, I want God to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Like I'm more interested in that than like making money, playing in the Olympics, whatever, like getting married, having a great family, like just that stuff's awesome. And I do have dreams for that. But like more than that, I want to like honor God with my life and like further his name and his glory.
I love that. So this past summer was the U.S. national team played and it was very eventful, very inspiring. Can you take me through your emotions during these games? I remember the first game they played Thailand and they put up, 12 goals?
13-0.
13-0. Can you take me through your emotions through each game?
Yeah.
For the fourth time, the United States of America are crowned champions of the world, and for the very first time they've done it on European soil. It is finished at the Stade de Lyon in the final in victory and joy for the United States.
Yeah, so as a player in like the NWSL, on every single team in the NWSL, we have national team players. So on the team I'm on now, Carla is on the team. On the team I was in prior, we had like Crystal Dunn, Sam Mewis, Abby Dahl-Kemper, and then a couple other internationals, and Jess McDonald. It was getting to watch your friends play on the international stage is like amazing. And it's like, as an athlete though, like there's two things that are going on. One, like you're super happy for your friends to have success. Two, there's a part of you that wishes you were there. So it's kind of managing that like emotional state of like, wow, like I wish I was there. But it's like, okay, in this moment, let's celebrate and support and also let that moment inspire me or you to go like, okay, what do I need to do to get there if that's my dream? So I would say I had like two very strong emotions. One is like super stoked, lots of joy, like really excited and like stoked for them. And like being American and the Americans doing so well and winning. And then the other one was like, wow, like watching them do that is so motivating because I fully believe I can be on that field with those girls.
Yes.
Because I watch it every day for 8 months and I practice and I play in games with them and I'm like, I can do it. Now it's a matter of like, what do I need to do to get there? I think I have the ability and the potential. Now it's like, okay, do those little things so that you can keep like shaping your game to the point where you can be an impact player at that level.
I believe you to get there as well.
Thank you.
You mentioned Carly Lloyd. What's it like playing with her? Because she's one of the best players in the league.
She is, at first from the outside, I was like, oh, like another national team player thinks they're good. I think a lot of it came from me not understanding like how once they're that famous, their life's very, very different than like a normal professional athlete, at least in WSL. And at first couple of weeks, I was like, oh, cool, getting to know her, like, what's the deal? And then after a few weeks, I was like, wow, this person is a class act. They like do what they say, they work their butt off, they like commit, they compete. And like something about how she carries herself and this like, even if she I don't know if I'd say she never shows that she's doubting, but she does get frustrated at times, but she's just like, regardless, like, I'm going to do my very best. I'm going to compete. I'm going to win. And she has a phrase that she always tells everybody. And she's like, empty the tank. Every day, no matter what it is, I want to empty the tank. If I have 20 gallons, empty it fully. If I have 100, empty it fully. But every day, just give everything you have. And like, that's what she wants to like be known for. And I would say she like lives that out. And as a younger player than her, like watching what she's done, how she's done it. And then as she is at this stage in her career, she's like 37, absolutely crushing it. She's one of the best players in the world right now. Seeing that like so much of it. And I'm like, wow, like her mindset is like rock solid. Like she almost knows how to think. So a lot of people, I know this is something that I think goes on in our world, in our culture, is people aren't taught how to think. They're like, oh, do this, try hard. But like, she's like, I would say developed and sharpened her like mind as a tool, and she just is insane at it. And she's like, I'm going to believe I'm the best, and I'm going to compete every day like I'm the best. And then she is the best every time. So it's like, wow, that's really inspiring. Like, what can I learn? What pages can I take? And like, and I asked her a question, I'm like, Carly, like, what do you think I should do? I want to get better at this. She's like, oh, dude, this is what I would do. And I'm like, sweet, notes. I'll go practice that. Thank you very much. So it's just really cool to be in that environment.
Yeah, so there was actually a podcast that was released yesterday, I believe, and she said that she wishes she played more in the
World Cup. Yeah.
And how do you feel about that?
Getting to know her and seeing how she's been performing in the past couple months after the World Cup, I would say that I agree with her. And like as a friend and as a teammate, I'm like, I 100% support you. And watching how she's, even in times when she hasn't gotten what she wanted and been like struggling with that, she still shows up, is a good teammate, still shows up, puts in the hours, puts in the work, and like goes above and beyond and does the little things right. And I'm like, at the end of the day, like that's the kind of person that you want to be like leading and like being a role model and getting the attention to help grow the sport and like how to be a human better.
So you've learned a ton from her so far.
Learned a ton from her, and I'm like, class act. I'm Team Carly. Woo, go Carly.
Go Carly. So my goal, what God put on my heart, is what I want to do is I want to alter the education system across the world. The reason being is because I've been through college. I went to England to do my master's degree, and I can honestly say that I believe I've learned more through sports than I have through the education system. Where I'm from Long Island, New York, but I've seen this all over the world. People grow up wanting to play professional sports, whether it be soccer, NBA, NFL, and when they don't make it there, they feel like they're asked out. They're like, oh, what now? And the reason being is because when you're playing this sports, you're in the moment, you're not realizing what you're learning from this. You know, you're learning teamwork, leadership, the list goes on. So I want these kids to be taught what they're learning when they're learning it. My question to you is, you've already made it to professional level. What is your dream?
I have a lot of dreams, but my soccer dream would be to make an Olympic roster for the U.S. Women's National Team. Working really hard to do that. Who knows if that'll happen, but I'll do everything I can, and hopefully that's what God has in the cards for me. I also would like to start multiple companies. When I was in 13 in middle school, they're like, we're going to do a time capsule. So you write your dreams down, and then in 6 months we'll open them. And literally since I was 13, my dreams have remained the same, like be a serial. I would like to play other sports also. So I'd like to do surfing and compete internationally as well, and probably sailing down the line. That's something my family's been really into. So like I would like to do a serial, like Olympic or professional athlete, and like a serial entrepreneur, and like sell companies, and like then invest in companies, like help the world, make the world a better place by choosing where you put the money that you make. Gotcha. So that's my vision. And then also I'd love to marry some great guy and have a bunch of kids, like 4 to 10 is my goal.
And you started the company.
Yeah, I started a tech company about 2 years ago so not this year, but the 2 years prior, I had a lot of injuries, which was very difficult time, but like I'd almost say it was really good because I learned so much about myself. And during that time, I started this tech company. And after the third injury in 2017, I sat down and I was like praying. I was like, God, please show me what I can build outside of soccer, completely unrelated to sports. That'll be like a business that I can help, that I can grow, start. And I don't know what would happen after that, maybe build other businesses within it or like whatnot, but like help me to create something that's valuable to this world. And throughout that time, in the past 2 years, I've been on this interesting journey, had a lot of interesting experiences, a lot of great experiences, a lot of not good experiences. But I basically built a decision-making algorithm that helps multi-people make decisions. And we're going to go into the food space first. So think Tinder for food. And it's going to be ideally big vision is we're creating the first search engine designed for groups. And once we do the food category, we'll the other categories. Wow. And I'm super stoked about that.
Where did you get this idea from?
I was when I prayed that prayer, I went to the library for 3 weeks straight and I would just read and research and for like hours a day. And I'm pretty close to my parents, and I would tell them, this is my idea, like bad one. You've told us hundreds. This is my idea, bad one. Okay, this is my next idea. That's the best idea I've ever heard. Go for it. So like the first time I probably told them 100 ideas in my life, and they're like, no. Yes. I was like, okay, great. So I've kind of gone all in on that idea. And a lot of it came from when I was in college at USC in 2012, I think I was in the middle of college, maybe a sophomore, junior. And I'm in the sorority house in Delta Gamma at Monday night dinner, and these boys walk in, and they're like, and on Monday night dinner, like there's about an hour at the beginning, like girls all, like we all get dolled up and dressed up, we're like waiting to eat, and these boys will get to announcements, like I'm in Sigma Chi, I have a delivery for like Elizabeth, Eddy, and Delta Gamma, and then like everyone cheers and you get a gift or whatever. Yeah. And then this boy walks in after like 50 announcements, everyone's like really ready to eat, and he goes, hey girls, my name's Sean Rad. I started this cool new app called Tinder. Download it now to help you guys find your next date for invite, because we'd have social parties like once or twice a week. Yeah. And I was like, Don, this is a little shallow for me to delete. I don't like it. It clearly blows up now. It's valued at a couple $1 billion. They got bought by Match Group. It's crushing it. So I was like, whoa, I watched how they launched this idea, and the kids went to USC. And then it was really simple. It was an image, swipe right, swipe left. And I was like, wow, that'd be really cool. And that kind of mechanism, which is like Apple design, is like swiping on images, is something that's really core to what we're building with this group decision-making tool. Because at the end of the day, it's basically taking this 5 to 10 minute debate of like, oh, what do you want to eat? Mexican, Italian, like maybe you want French food, we're going back and forth. It takes us like 5 or 10 minutes. That's like sometimes frustrating. Sometimes somebody gets hangry. That's like, we're trying to like take away that whole like, I'm going to kill somebody, I don't care anymore, you decide. Gotcha. We want to like negate that and then be like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to send, I'm going to add the people, add the time, send an invite. Everybody swipes through a stack of images. People decide on their own individually isolated. It takes about 90 seconds. We'll all come back together. Hey, all 3 of you would be happy, here, go. So we're just shortening and making more efficient that process because there's a massive amount of information and data. It's just really unorganized and hard to sort through. So we're basically helping people sort.
Wow, that's amazing. So you started this by yourself, or do you have friends from school?
I have a couple people working on it with me right now. I have a development team, somebody on internally, that's on the tech side, somebody internally that's on the marketing side. So we're kind of building that all up right now. I have quite a few investors, and we're just got to raise a little money, raise quite a bit. It's all kind of coming together. We'll have a web app ready, and we will launch, we'll do testing. We'll be ready in mid-December. We'll launch in mid-January, and then we'll have a couple months to like, just like grow it, get people using it in LA and Orange County, and then get the restaurants on board and like kind of where that's where revenue model comes in. And then once that works, kind of proof of concept, it's like, this is how we did it in this area. And then we can put the money that we raised or that we earned back into build an iOS app, and we'll do a fall launch probably at USC and LA and NYU and Manhattan.
Wow.
So I'm super stoked to like hopefully build something that can like not only help like indecisive people make decisions, but like help groups enjoy more time offline together than spending time online searching on Yelp, on Google, on Instagram. Like, oh, I think it's, I don't know. I don't know.
No, like, I'm excited. I need that. So when that comes to New York, I'll be one of the first ones using it.
That's awesome. We'll probably be in March, I think, in New York for a web app.
I'll write that down after this interview.
Awesome.
So like you, I'm a dreamer as well. And as things start to line up, I start to get excited. And there's a Bible verse that I came across that really sticks with me. And I just want to share it with you. It says, but those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Like I mentioned earlier, you're a professional athlete. You could be doing a million other things, but you're here with me. I met you a few weeks ago, and you decided to have this conversation with me. How important is humility to you?
I think that is like one of the number one traits, and I think it's really hard to like understand what that even means, and then even like try to live that out. And I think the reason why I think it's hard is because different perspectives would say different things. So somebody's like, oh, it's really humble that you did this, but then you're like, well, actually, it's probably pretty selfish or prideful that I did this for these reasons. So I think at the end of the day, a lot of it's like where your heart's at. And sometimes from the outside, it won't look like what it actually is. So I think like a big thing for me is like trying to like make sure I'm honest with myself of like, okay, what is my heart's intent? And let's try to be like as pure and as like kind of genuine as I can from that, versus sometimes when it can get convoluted of like, well, if I do this, that'll make this person do this. It's like, that's not where like life's fully lived. That's where like manipulation, like fear, anger, hurt lives. And that's not where you want to live. So it's like, okay, like what can be like the best for like the greater good, and how can I provide value to others? And at the same time, like growing who God made me to be and sharing that story.
Gotcha. So from the outside looking in, so I look at professional athletes as like a totally different type of person.
Yeah.
You know, as a professional athlete, do you see yourself as different from others?
I think I'm pretty normal. I think like I'm really thankful that one of the gifts God gave me was like a lot of athleticism, and then like an enjoyment of working really hard and being really competitive. But I also think like, I think professional athletes in our culture are like idolized, and I think that it's like a bit out of whack, because I think every single human's gifted uniquely and like incredibly. And I think a lot of times, unfortunately, people say, if I'm not a pro athlete or not an actress or someone famous, I'm just going to be an average person, or like I'm not really good at business. It's like, well, no, you can literally do anything you want in this world. And like my encouragement to everybody would be like, I don't care what it is. If you're excited about it and you love it, you've won the game of life.
Yes.
Like if it's a sport, awesome. If it's not like you can do whatever you want. And if you wanted it to be a sport at one point and it didn't work out for you, it's like, don't be like, oh, I wasn't good enough. Like maybe part of you wasn't good enough, but also maybe you were actually meant to do other things and you have a lot more gifts and talents in other ways.
You could use those talents that you learned somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Have you ever heard the quote, use sports, don't let sports use you?
No, can you say it again?
Use sports, don't let sports use you.
That is really, really good.
What do you think that means?
Okay, I think it means that, like, understand that sports is a vehicle and that it's an opportunity for you to, like, join this vehicle, ride it for as long as you can, enjoy what you can learn from it. Mm-hmm. But if you get on the vehicle, maybe start hanging on longer than you should, or like start doing different things and you start getting run over by the wheel, your left leg keeps getting trampled. Like if you go to sports and then instead of letting it be a vehicle platform, you treat it like it's the god of your life, that's when you start slipping and all these things start like kind of happening really unfortunately. Like for example, after our first year in the league, my first year in the pros in 2015 or 2016, we won the championship. I played every minute, but I left that season saying, well, I just learned that you can lie, cheat, and steal and that wins. And like to leave a very successful time in your life and have that feeling was like really disheartening for me. I was like, I've done everything I can. I'm almost towards my goal. And like, I'm not even satisfied at all. Like, I think I literally took sports from the vehicle that it should have been and put it as the god of my life. And I was like, wow, looking back, I was like, that's a mistake I made. I don't really know when that shift happened, but like, that's what led to me being extremely dissatisfied after a season of like extreme success on the external outset.
Gotcha. So how would you say that people could look at sports and use it instead of letting it run everything?
I would say that, and this is where like the pride humility thing can get a little tricky, but understanding that like we're all given the gift of life. It's an incredible gift to even be given in life. Mm-hmm. And that like part of that gift of life is like, God's like, also, I made you as a human and I made you with these skill sets, this background, this experience, like the area you grew up in, like the area you didn't grow up in, like these things that you've had that have shaped and created who you are. And like to remember that like the biggest thing in life is like, who am I and who did God make me to be and how can I like give that back to the world? And like sports is a vehicle to do that. But if sometimes you let sport become who you are, that's like really dangerous.
Gotcha.
And I think it's a really fine line and you kind of have to toe the line to like, you can't run away from the line. You have to experience it. You have to put yourself into the vehicle to have that experience. But it's like a really delicate thing of like not losing who you are in the pursuit of being the best you can be. Because if you lose your moral character and the values that like create like a quality human, you just become like everybody else, and why the world has a lot of the negative and horrible things that are going on.
No, I agree. So I look at this in terms of college sports. So you play your 4 years, and then they bring in a new group of people. Yeah. So if you're not making the most of that opportunity, then they're just using you for your goods, and then they have a new group of people coming in. Yeah. So I read one more book. I'm sorry for all these quotes. The book is his name is Jonathan Fader. He's a sports psychologist. He worked with the Mets and the Giants. The book is titled Life as Sport, and this is the quote that I got from there. It says, if you can look at your life as a sport and yourself as an athlete at the center of this all-important game, you'll be able to easily and effectively achieve the results you desire. Why should people look at life as a sport? Oh,
that's interesting. I would say if you look, at least from my perspective, if I'm looking at life as a sport, like you can experience every emotion. You can be full of joy. You can be full of fear. You can be in pain. Like you can feel all that there is to feel. And the cool thing about sport is it's a microcosm. For soccer, it's 90 minutes and you have every emotional touch point. And I think if you can like go to sport, learn how to handle those emotions, then when you're in real life and like bigger things than sports are happening, like family stuff, or like it's usually life, but the most things important in life are humans. So like interpersonal relation things, when those things are going good or bad, then you can learn from sport how to handle those things. So like me as an individual, what can I do? Okay, if this is going on, maybe it's a time to like sit back and observe. Like I've learned that that's best. Maybe if this is going on, like then like I need to take action, be involved, like really get myself in there so I can help set it right. So I think it's a lot in sports. You can learn like these skill sets of how to manage emotion that you can like take into real life of like, what do I do when I'm feeling this? Go do this. What do I do when I'm not feeling this? Okay, go do it. Like it's a good platform to kind of learn the skill sets you need to manage emotion.
Gotcha. And there's parents out there that hold their children out from playing sports, whether it be fear of injury or what have you. What do you feel that these parents are having their children miss out on?
I think sports is an incredible thing, like I was saying, to learn, but I think that it's sad if parents are holding their kids out for fear of injury, because in life you can get injured. You could walk outside and trip on the sidewalk and hurt your ankle. You could go into a slide tackle and hurt your ankle. Like, you're going to get hurt in life. That's just part of life, part of living, part of taking the risk of stepping outside and being alive, is to get hurt and injured. And then how do you deal with that is what really kind of gives you the opportunity to grow. And without those experiences, you can't grow as much as a person. You can't grow your character, or your morals. And like, that's the most important thing, is like growing your character and like who like are you and how you're going to give back to the world. So I think a big thing is like, and if it's not sport, it's got to be something.
Yeah.
And something that like puts yourself out there and that's like challenging and like somewhat competitive, because then it's like, well, I'm like, you don't get a gold star for anything. Like, you need to work hard and understand kind of what that is. And sports are a really great way to learn that. And if it's like something in music, something in like the creative arts, that's also awesome. But as long as kids are getting put into situations to like be challenged and like get told sometimes you're not good enough, and then what do? Go look at yourself in the mirror. What can I do better? Okay, like just have a one-on-one conversation, me and me. What do I need to do differently? And then stay in your lane, focus, like hone your craft, get better at it, and then keep working at it. But I think a lot of times parents are a little overprotective, and also like end up taking away the kid's chance to build self-esteem.
Yes. I agree. Elizabeth, thank you so much for this.
This is awesome.
I have two more questions. So, where can the people find you if they want to support your company, if they want to follow you as a professional athlete?
So the probably best way to follow is on Instagram. It's my name, Elizabeth Eddy 2, the number, and then our tech company. It's at choice _food, and those are the two places. Probably Instagram's probably the best place to reach me. And yeah.
Gotcha. My final question: do you remember our handshake?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for this. And you're going to LA?
Going to LA in 2 days.
All right. Safe travels. Thank you.